Alright, so on this problem right here, they give you a 6th grade class and they said, how do you usually listen to music? So we have 77, 24, 30, 38, and 6. The first thing you need to do, because they don't tell this to you, is you need to figure out the total. So you need to add those together. Oh, I wish I could remember. I can't. So I would take my calculator, I would add them together,
175.
and I would get my total, and I would make sure that I put my total in there. My total is 175. Okay? Then, what I would do to solve this, and there are multiple ways to solve this, is for the iPod, I know that there are 77 out of 175. I can take 77 out of 175. That is the part-to-whole relationship. I know that it's equal to 100%, and I'm trying to find the percent. So I could do the scaling up. However, for this one, when I know the part and the whole, I would take the part, I would divide it by the whole. That gives me a decimal. I would then multiply it by 100 to get the percent. And so I would know I take the part, the numerator, divided by the denominator of the whole. That equals a decimal. I times it by 100. That gives me a percent. I want to write the percent in there and show that work. Second one, computer. For the computer, I would take the parts, 24 votes. I would take the whole, 175 students. I would show that I took 24 divided by 175. That gives me a decimal, a big long decimal. I'll write it down. It might have even rounded it at the end. I'll show that I'm timesing it by 100 to give me a percent. And then that would be 13.71428%. I would show that I rounded it to 14%. The directions here tell me round your answers to the nearest whole percent. And so that second one should be 14% if I've done that correctly. Doing the same thing for the next one, the radio. For the radio, I have 30 students. There were 175 total. I would show that I would take the numerator, divide it by the denominator to turn the fraction into a decimal. That gives me a big long decimal. I write it down. I show that I multiply it by 100 to turn the decimal into a percent. It gives me a nice long decimal, or a nice long percent. I show that I rounded it to the nearest whole percent. And so that would be 17%. Same thing, smartphone. 38, prefer that. 175 is the total. I take the numerator, I divide it by the denominator. I get a nice long decimal. I times it by 100 to turn the decimal into a percent. I round it to the nearest whole percent. Put the little squiggly lines because that means about. And then I write in 22%. Don't like music. or at least I don't like the continental drift music. I take the 6 over 175. I could take the numerator, I could divide it by the denominator. That's going to turn my decimal into it's going to turn my fraction into a decimal. I'm going to times that by 100. That's going to equal a percent. Oops. I'm going to show that I rounded it to the nearest whole percent. I'm going to write my percent in there. So I could show equivalent ratios for this, like some of you did, and that's perfectly fine and wonderful. But I could go through and take the numerator divided by the denominator. That gives you a percent. I times it by 100 to get the percent. I could do both of those to check my work. If that helps me make sure I have the right answer, that's what you should be doing. Oh no. Then at the bottom, this is the precision category. So there's things, notice there's things I'm not doing. I'm not listing the important info. I can check it, but I don't have to check it. I'd recommend it. I'm labeling everything. I am making sure I'm putting a percent sign past everything as I'm working. All right? When I'm doing these problems, I'm going to do 24 is what percent of 80? And I know the whole thing's 100%. I can show scaling up. I could show this is the part in the whole, so I could show 24 divided by 80, taking the fraction, turning it into a decimal, timesing it by 100 to equal the 30%. Second one, we don't know the part. We know the whole is 60 because it's of 60. We know that the percent is 35%. We know the whole thing is going to be 100%. I could scale this up. I could scale this down, times this by 0.6, times this by 0.6, Brent over there. Or I could take the percent, turn it into a decimal, times it by the whole, and that should give me my answer of 21. Once again, Molnar's not very smart, comma, Mr. So I want to make sure I circle my final answers. I'm trying to label what I did when I scale up or scale down. 84 is 42% of what number? I know the whole thing is going to be 100%. I know that what I'm missing is the whole. I'm paying attention to how these are worded. The videos, watching those helps. Makes it a little bit easier. This one I would scale up because I noticed that 42 times 2 equals 84. 100 times 2 equals 200 would be the whole. I go to the pages here. I'm allowed to use my calculator, but I did show all work that it took me to arrive. I did have, in theory, correct answers with no errors, I believe. There wasn't much to mark down, but I did put in all of the percentage signs. Little things like that will help you get a 4. So if it's like money, making sure you're putting dollar signs in. There wasn't much, but I did correctly label when I was scaling up or scaling down my equivalent ratios. And then this last one, we made most of these, so this one doesn't really apply. So we don't have to worry about that one for right now. Okay? So that's the second part.